This video will show you the technique I used both in closed beta, and now at release, to obtain the perfect 8-link buff chain for the simulation room. This technique is helpful to push you into any tier you need help to clear. We will analyze the basics of the buff chain in the first half of the video, and then move to the technique itself in the second half. Feel free to use the timestamps, if you are already comfortable with the simulation room. Chapter 1, Understanding the Buffs and the Buff Chain. After completing a combat stage in the simulation room, you are presented with the option to choose a buff. Buffs can differ by property, rarity, and type. The property of the buff is the primary ability, like, reduces reload time by 53.9% when HP falls below 20%. The rarity influences the magnitude of the buff's property. For example, R is the most common buff, then we have SR, SSR, and Epic. Lastly, we have the kind. Kind doesn't influence the buff on its own, but is the only factor that matters when crafting your buff chain. A buff chain is any combination of one or more buffs. When specific requisites are met, the buff chain enhances all the relevant buffs affected. The requisites are as follows. Level 1, basic level, no requisites. Level 2, have 3 buffs of the same type. Level 3, have 3 buffs of the same type twice. Level 4, have 6 buffs of the same type. Level 5, have 8 buff of the same type. Now, the last important thing you have to remember is the legacy buff. Every time you kill a boss and then you decide to leave and terminate the simulation, you can save one non-epic type buff, which will become a legacy buff. Legacy buffs are available from the start of the simulation room, no matter how many times you reset it. The buffs only last one in-game day, so you will lose all your legacy buffs every day at 5 AM. Now that we have covered the basics, let's discuss how you can craft your perfect 8-link buff chain. Chapter 2, Crafting the perfect 8-link buff chain. As you can see, I don't have any legacy buff currently, and this stage is way above my party combat rating. So let's craft one. The first step is to unlock all 3 sectors of the first difficulty. Then, after one full clear of sectors A, B, and C, we end up with one legacy buff. Now, for this example, I have selected a square type buff, but remember that it doesn't have to be square, since it is our first. Any will do. What is essential is that the following buffs you will take, will be of the same type you have selected. But we will use square type for this example, because this is the one I picked when recording this footage. Now the next step is to do buff scumming. If you are familiar with the term safe scumming, you will understand what I am about to do at a glance. In video games, safe scumming is regularly saving your game, and reloading that save whenever you don't like the current situation. Buff scumming acts in a similar way. We start a new simulation in Sector 1C, and if the first area we are presented with doesn't have a square buff, we quit the simulation and start a new one immediately after. You can see me doing this in the footage right now. You have to do this in Sector 1C for 2 reasons. The first is that Sector 1 is the simplest and shortest of all the sectors. The second is because Area C is the first area where elite combat areas, areas with a red border, are guaranteed to appear in the first room. Elite areas are good because you can obtain high rarity buffs from SR and above. Now, back on topic. After we find an elite area with a square buff, we complete Sector 1C, saving our second legacy buff. Then we rinse and repeat till we have 8 buffs. From now on, we can start any new area by already having a full 8-link buff chain. As you can see, I can now enter the area I showed you earlier, where my combat rating was too low. Thanks to this technique, you can perfect craft any 8-link buff fast, and then go to challenge areas above your combat rating. Postface. If you have enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. See you soon.